Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
All right, so you can start reading from text 20, 21 to 26.
Text 21 20. Text is 1 to 20, 21 to 26. Krishna Namatata Bharata Bhavita Prithivi Pati Shri Santa Karnasta Putra Punamanas Tutatsuta Lambudaras Tutatputras Saksmat Chibila Kornipa Nigas Swatis Chibilakal Atamanastu Yacha Anishta Karma Kilasya Salakas Dasya Jaha Purusha Barusta Putras Sato Raja Sunandana Shakaro Bahavo Yatra Save Baspatir Ani Arindama Tasyapi Gomati Purni Punam Bhavita Tapa Nade Shira Sivaks Ro Yajnashri Statutastata Vijayas Tatsuto Bhavayas Chandra Viganta Hari Trimam Sam Nipatayas Jatvat Yadda Satani Cha Satpanchasakcha Prithivim Guru Dana. Translation. Brother of Bali, Krishna, will become the next ruler of the earth. His son will be Sanata Karna. His son will be Purnamasa. The son of Purnamas will be Lambodara, who will father Maharaj Chibilaka. But Chibilaka will come Megaswati, whose son will be Atamana. The son of Atamana will be Anishtakarma. His son will be Hireya, and his son will be Talaka. The son of Talaka will be Purishabiru, and following him Sunandana, become king. Sunanda will be followed by Jakora, the Bahus. Among whom Devaswati will be a great subduer of the enemies. Son of Shivaswati will be Mati. His son will be Purimam, whose son will be Mideshira. His son will be Shivaskanda, and his son will be Yagnashri. The son of Yagnashri will be Vijaya, who will have two sons, Chandravijan and Lomadu. These 30 kings will enjoy sovereignty over the earth for a total of 400 years. Favorite son of the Kurus. 27. Tata Bari Ava Britya Dasaka Dabino Nipa Kanka Sadasho Bhupala Vishyanti Paha. Translation. Then will follow 7 kings of the Abira race from the city of Avipriti, and then 10 Gardabis. After them, 16 kings of the Kankas will rule and will be known for their excessive greed.
Alright, so you can hold that. Guru Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. Glories to Prabhupada. And you can continue from text 28.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All devotees to Srila Prabhupada. Text 28. Tatostau yavana bhavyash chaturdasha turushkaka bhuyo dasha gurundascha maula ekadashaivat. Translation. 8 yavanas will then take power, followed by 14 purushkas, 10 gurundas, and 11 kings of the Maula dynasty. Text 29 to 31. Ete bhokshanti prithivim dasha varsha shatani cha navadhikam cha navatim maula ekadasha tishitim bhokshanti abda shatani anga trini tae samstite tata kila kilayam nipatayo Bhutanando Thavandiri Shishunandishcha Tadbharata Yashonandi Pravirata Iti Ete Vai Valsha Shatam Bhavishyanti Adhikani Sat. Translation. 3 Abhiras, Gardhabhis and Kankas will enjoy the earth for 1099 years, and the Maulas will rule for 300 years. When all of them have died off, there will appear in the city of Kila a dynasty of kings consisting of Bhutananda, Vangiri, Shishu Nandi's brother Yasho Nandi, and Praviraka. These kings of Kila will hold sway for a total of 106 years. Text 32 to 33. Desham Trayo Dasha Suta Avitarascha Bahilika Pushpa Mirtro Tha Rajanyo Durmitro Sya Tathaiva Cha Eka Kala Ine Bhupa Saptandhra Sapta Kaushala Vidura Patayo Bhavya Nishadhas Tata Evahi. Translation. The Kilas will be followed by their 13 sons, the Bahilikas, and after them King Pushpa Mitra, his son Dhul Mitra, 7 Andhras, 7 Kaushalas, and also kings of the Vidura, Nishadha, and Nishadha provinces will separately rule in different parts of the world. Text 34. Magadhanam tu bhavita vishvasbhur jihi puran jhaya karishyati aparo varnam nan ulinda yadu madrakan. Translation. There will then appear a king of the Magadhas named Vishvasbhurji, who will be like another Puran Jaya. He will turn all the civilized classes into low-class, uncivilized men in the same category as the Pulindas, Yadus, and Madrakas. Text 35. Prajascha Brahma Bhuyishtha Sthapayishyati Durmati Viryavan Kshatram Utsadhya Padmavatyam Savai Puri Anugangam Aprayagam Bhukstam Bhukshyanti Medini. Translation. Foolish King Vishwaspurji will maintain all the citizens in ungodliness and will use his power to completely disrupt the Kshatriya order. From his capital of Padmavati, he will rule that part of the earth extending from the source of the Ganga to Prayag. Text 36. Saurashtravanti Abhirashcha Yura Arbuddha Malava Vratya Dvija Bhavishyanti Shudra Praya Janadhipa. Translation. At that time, the Brahmanas of such provinces as Saurashtra, Avanti, Abhira, Shura, Arbuda, and Malava will forget all their regulative principles, and the members of the royal order in these places will become no better than Shudras. Text 37. Sindhostatam Chandrabhagam Kauntim Kashmira Mandalam Bhokshanti Shudra Vratyandya Milichascha Brahma Varshasa. Translation. The land along the Sindhu river as well as the districts of Chandrabhaga, Kaunti and Kashmira will be ruled by Shudras, fallen Brahmins and meat eaters. Having given up the path of Vedic civilization, they will have lost all spiritual strength. Text 38. Tulya kala ine rajan malicha prayascha bhubrita ite dharmantra para Malgudas Tivra Manyava. Translation. There will be many such uncivilized kings ruling at the same time, O King Parikshit, and they will all be uncharitable, possessed of fierce tempers, and great devotees of irreligion and falsehood. Text 39.
All right. So you can hold that.
Yes.
All right. So 39:40. Sri Bala Godvijagnascha Paradhara Dhanardrita Udithasta Mitha Praya Alpa Sadva Pakkayashu Asamskrita Kriyahina Rajasa Tamasa Vrita Prajaste Bhaksha Yasyanti Mlacha Rajanya Rupana. These barbarians in the guise of kings will devour the citizenry, murdering innocent women, children, cows, and Brahmins, and coveting the wives and property of other men. They will be erratic in their moods, have little strength of character, and be very short-lived. Indeed, not purified by any Vedic rituals and lacking in the practice of regulative principles, they will be completely covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. Purport. These verses give a concise, accurate description of the fallen leaders of this age. And text 41. Tannathaste janapadas takchila charavadina Anyonyato Rajavischa Shayam Yashanti Pirita. The citizens governed by these lowest class kings will imitate the character, behavior, and speech of their rulers. Harassed by their leaders and by each other, they will all suffer ruination. Purport. At the end of the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Ripunjaya or Puranjaya, the first king mentioned in this chapter, ended his rule about 1,000 years after the time of Lord Krishna. Since Lord Krishna appeared approximately 5,000 years ago, Puranjaya must have appeared about 4,000 years ago. This would mean that Vishwaspurji, the last king mentioned, would have appeared approximately in the 12th century of the Christian era. Most Western scholars have made false accusation that Indian religious culture has no sense of chronological history, but the elaborate historical chronology described in this chapter certainly refutes that naive assessment. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 12th canto, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Degraded Dynasties of Kali Yuga. And so moving on to chapter 2, which is the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Sri Sukho Vacha Tataschano Dinam Dharma Satyam Saucham Shamadaya Kalena Balina Rajan Nakshyati Ayur Balam Smriti. Shukadeva Goswami said, "Then, O king, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali." Purport: during the present age, Kali Yuga, practically all desirable qualities will gradually diminish, as described in this verse. For example, dharma, which indicates a respect for higher authority that leads one to obey religious principles, will diminish. In the Western world, theologians have been unable to scientifically present the laws of God, or indeed God Himself, and thus in Western intellectual history, a rigid dichotomy has arisen between theology and science. In an attempt to resolve this conflict, some theologians have agreed to modify their doctrine so that they conform not only to proven scientific facts, but even to pseudo-scientific speculations and hypotheses, which, though unproven, are hypocritically included within the realm of science. On the other hand, some fanatical theologians disregard the scientific method altogether and insist on the veracity of their antiquated sectarian dogmas. Thus, bereft of systematic Vedic theology, material science has moved into the destructive realm of gross materialism, while speculative Western philosophy has drifted into the superficiality of relativistic ethics and inconclusive linguistic analysis. With so many of the best Western minds dedicated to material analysis, naturally much of Western religious life, separated from the intellectual mainstream, is dominated by irrational fanaticism and unauthorized mystic and mystery cults. People have become so ignorant of the science of God that they often lump the Krishna consciousness movement in with this odd assortment of fanciful attempts at theology and religion. Thus, Dharma, or true religion, which is strict and conscious obedience to God, to God's law, is diminishing. Satyam, truthfulness, is also diminishing because people do not know what truth is. Without knowing the absolute truth, one cannot clearly understand the real significance or purpose of life merely by amassing huge quantities of relative or hypothetical truths. Shama, tolerance or forgiveness, is diminishing as well, because there is no practical method by which people can purify themselves and thus become free of envy. Unless one is purified by the chanting of the holy names of the Lord in an authorized program of spiritual improvement, the mind will be overwhelmed by anger, envy, and all sorts of small-mindedness. Thus, daya, mercy, is also decreasing. All living beings are eternally connected by their common participation in the divine existence of God. When this existential oneness is obscured through atheism and agnosticism, people are not inclined to be merciful to one another. They cannot recognize their self-interest in promoting the welfare of other living beings. In fact, people are no longer even merciful to themselves. They systematically destroy themselves through liquor, drugs, tobacco, meat eating, sexual promiscuity, and whatever other cheap gratificatory processes are available to them. Okay, so because of all these self-destructive practices of the powerful influence of time, the average lifespan (AYUR) is decreasing. Modern scientists seek to gain credibility among the mass of people, often publish statistics supposedly showing that science has increased the average duration of life. But these statistics do not take into account the number of people killed through the cruel practice of abortion. When we figure aborted children into the life expectancy of the total population, we find that the average duration of life has not at all increased in the age of Kali, but is rather decreasing drastically. Balam, bodily strength, is also decreasing. The Vedic literature states that 5,000 years ago, in the previous age, human beings and even animals and plants were larger and stronger. With the progress of the age of Kali, physical stature and strength will gradually diminish. Certainly, Smriti, memory, is weakening. In former ages, human beings possessed superior memory, and they also did not encumber themselves with the terrible bureaucratic and technical society as we have done. Thus, essential information and abiding wisdom were preserved without recourse to writing. Of course, in the age of Kali, things are dramatically different. All right, so Lord Prabhu, you can continue from text 2. Okay, we didn't hear you, Lord Prabhu. I think you're still muted. Okay, so maybe for some reason he's unable to read. So Varun Prabhu, can you go ahead and continue from text 2?
Yes, text 2. Vittam eva kalau nirnam janmachara gunodaya dharma nyaya vyavasthayam karanam balanti vahi. Translation. In Kali Yuga, wealth alone will be considered the sign of a man's good birth, proper behavior, and fine qualities, and law and justice will be applied only on the basis of one's power. Purport. In the age of Kali, a man is considered high class, middle class, or low class merely according to his financial status, regardless of his knowledge, culture, and behavior. In this age, there are many great industrial and commercial cities with luxurious neighborhoods reserved for the rich. On beautiful tree-lined roads within apparently aristocratic homes, it is not unusual to find many perverted, dishonest, and sinful activities taking place. According to Vedic criteria, a man is considered high class if his behavior is enlightened, and his behavior is considered enlightened if his activities are dedicated to promoting the happiness of all creatures. Every living being is originally happy, because in all living bodies there is an eternal spiritual part that partakes of the divine conscious nature of God. When our original spiritual awareness is revived, we become naturally blissful and satisfied in knowledge and peace. An enlightened or educated man should endeavor to revive his own spiritual understanding, and he should help others experience the same sublime consciousness. The great Western philosopher Socrates stated that if a man is enlightened, he will automatically act virtuously, and Prabhupada confirmed this fact. But in the Kali Yuga, this obvious truth is disregarded, and the search for knowledge and virtue has been replaced by a vicious, animalistic competition for money. Those who prevail become the top dogs of modern society, and their consumer power grants them a reputation as most respectable, aristocratic, and well educated. This verse also states that in the age of Kali, brute strength, Balam Eva, will determine law and justice. We should keep in mind that in the progressive Vedic culture, there was no artificial dichotomy between the spiritual and the public realms. All civilized people took it for granted that God is everywhere and that his laws are binding upon all creatures. The Sanskrit word dharma therefore indicates one's social or public obligation as well as one's religious duty. Thus, responsibly caring for one's family is dharma, and engaging in the loving service of God is also dharma. This verse indicates, however, that in the age of Kali, the principle of might makes right still holds sway. In the first chapter of this canto, we observed how this principle infiltrated India's past. Similarly, as the Western world achieved political, economic, and technological hegemony over Asian lands, bogus propaganda was disseminated to the effect that Indian, and in general all non-Western religion, theology, and philosophy are somehow primitive and unscientific, mere mythology and superstition. Fortunately, this arrogant, irrational view is now dissipating, and people all over the world are beginning to appreciate the staggering wealth of spiritual philosophy and science available in the Sanskrit literature of India. In other words, many intelligent people are no longer consider traditional Western religion or empirical science, which has virtually superseded religion as the official Western dogma, necessarily authoritative, merely because the West has politically and economically subdued other geographic and ethnic configurations of humanity. Thus, there is now hope that spiritual issues can be contested and resolved on a philosophical level and not merely by a crude test of arms. Next, this verse points out that the rule of law will be applied unequally to the powerful and the powerless. Already in many nations, justice is available only to those who can pay and fight for it. In a civilized state, every man, woman, and child must have equal and rapid access to a fair system of laws. In modern times, we sometimes refer to this as human rights. Certainly, human rights are one of the most obvious casualties of the age of Kali. Text 3. Dampatye bhiruchir hetur
Speak
yaiva
it
vyam.
better. That's a,
Should I continue?
yeah, no, you can hold it. All right, Lloyd Prabhu, are you there? All right, so text 3 is Dampatye biruchir hetur mayaiva vyavaharike stritve pumstve chahiratir vipratve shutram evahi. Men and women will live together merely because of superficial attraction, and success in business will depend on deceit. Womanliness and manliness will be judged according to one's expertise in sex, and a man will be known as a Brahmin just by his wearing a thread. Just as human life as a whole has great and serious purpose, namely spiritual liberation, fundamental human institutions such as marriage and child-rearing should also be dedicated to that great objective. Unfortunately, in the present age, the satisfaction of the sex impulse has become the overriding, if not the exclusive reason for marriage. The sexual impulse, which induces the male and female of almost every species to combine physically, and in higher species also emotionally, is ultimately not a natural urge, because it is based on the unnatural identification of the self with the body. Life itself is a spiritual phenomenon. It is the soul that lives and gives apparent life to the biological machine called the body. Consciousness is the soul's manifest energy, and thus consciousness Awareness itself is originally an entirely spiritual event. When life or consciousness is confined within a biological machine and falsely thinks, mistakes itself to be that machine, material existence occurs and sex desire arises. God intends human life to be an opportunity for us to rectify this illusory mode of existence and return to the vast satisfaction of pure godly existence. But because our identification with the material body is a long historical affair, it is difficult for most people to immediately break free from the demands of the materially molded mind. Therefore, the Vedic scriptures prescribe sacred marriage in which a so-called man and so-called woman may combine in a regulated spiritual marriage sheltered by overarching religious injunctions. In this way, the candidate for self-realization who has selected family life can derive adequate satisfaction for his senses and simultaneously please the Lord within his heart by obeying religious injunctions. The Lord then purifies him of material desire. In Kali Yuga, this deep understanding has been almost lost. And as stated in this verse, men and women combine like animals solely on the basis of mutual attraction to bodies made of flesh, bone, membrane, blood, and so on. In other words, in our modern godless society, the weak, superficial intelligence of humanity rarely penetrates beyond the gross physical covering of the eternal soul. And thus, family life has, in most cases, lost its highest value and purpose. A corollary point established in this verse is that in the age of Kali, a woman is considered a good woman if she is sexually attractive and indeed sexually efficient. Similarly, a sexually attractive man is a good man. The best example of this superficiality is the incredible attention the 20th century people give to the materialistic movie stars, music stars, and other prominent figures in the entertainment industry. In fact, pursuing sexual experiences with various types of bodies is similar to drinking old wine from new bottles. But few people in Kali Yuga can understand it. Finally, this verse states that in the age of Kali, a man will become known as a priest or Brahmin merely by wearing ceremonial dress. In India, Brahmanas wear a sacred thread, and in other parts of the world, members of the priestly caste have other ornaments and symbols. But in the age of Kali, the symbols alone will suffice to establish a person as a religious leader, despite his ignorance of God. All right, so you can continue from text 4.
Yes. Text 4. Lingam evashrama khyatau अन्योन्यत्पत्ति कारणम् आवृत्य न्याय दौर्बल्यम् पंडित्ये chapalam vacha. A person's spiritual position will be ascertained merely according to external symptoms, and on that same basis people will change from one spiritual order to the next. A person's propriety will be seriously questioned if he does not earn a good living, and one who is very clever at juggling words will be considered a learned scholar. Purport. The previous verse stated that in the age of Kali, the priestly class will be recognized by external symbols, and this verse extends the same principle to the other orders of society, namely the political or military class, the business or productive class, and finally the laborer or artisan. Modern sociologists have demonstrated that in those societies chiefly governed by the Protestant ethic, poverty is considered a sign of indolence, dirtiness, stupidity, immorality, and worthlessness. In a God-conscious society, however, many persons voluntarily decide to dedicate their life not to material acquisition, but rather to the pursuit of knowledge and spirituality. Thus, a
Huh?
preference The simple and the austere may indicate intelligence, self-control, and sensitivity to the highest purpose of life. Of course, in itself, poverty does not establish these virtues, but it may sometimes be the result of them. In the Kali Yuga, however, this possibility is often forgotten. Intellectuality is another casualty of the bewildering age of Kali. Modern so-called philosophers and scientists have created a technical, esoteric terminology for each branch of learning, and when they give lectures, people consider them learned simply because of their ability to speak that which no one else can understand. In Western culture, the Greek sophists were among the first to systematically argue for rhetoric and efficiency above wisdom and purity, and sophistry certainly flourishes in the 20th century. Modern universities have very little wisdom, though they do possess a virtual infinity of technical data. So interesting. Although many modern thinkers are fundamentally ignorant of the higher spiritual reality, they are, so to speak, good talkers, and most people simply don't notice their ignorance. Text 5. अनाध्यात्तैव साधुत्वे साधुत्वे दम्भा एव तु स्वीकार एव चोद्वहे स्नानम एव prasadhanam. Translation: a person will be judged unholy if he does not have money, and hypocrisy will be accepted as virtue. Marriage will be arranged simply by verbal agreement, and a person will think he is fit to appear in public if he has merely taken a bath. Purport: the word Dambha indicates a self-righteous hypocrite, someone not so much concerned with being saintly as with appearing saintly. In the age of Kali, there is a rather large number of self-righteous, hypocritical religious fanatics claiming to have the only way, the only truth, and the only light. In many Muslim countries, this mentality has resulted in brutal repression of religious freedom and thus destroyed the opportunity for enlightened spiritual dialectic. Fortunately, in much of the Western world, there is a system of free religious expression. Even in the West, however, self-righteous hypocrites consider sincere and saintly followers of other disciples to be heathens and devils. Western religious fanatics are usually addicted to many bad habits, such as smoking, drinking, sex, gambling, and animal slaughter. Although the followers of the Krishna consciousness movement strictly avoid illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and animal killing, and although they dedicate their lives to the constant glorification of God, self-righteous hypocrites claim that such strict austerity and devotion to God are tricks of the devil. Thus, the sinful are promoted as religious and the saintly are decried as demonic. This pathetic incapacity to grasp the modern rudimentary criteria of spirituality is a prominent system of Kali Yuga. In this age, the institution of marriage will degenerate. Indeed, already a marriage certificate is sometimes cynically rejected as a mere piece of paper. Forgetting the spiritual purpose of marriage and misunderstanding sex to be the goal of family life, lusty men and women directly engage in sexual affairs without the troublesome formalities and responsibilities of a legal relationship. Such foolish people argue that sex is natural, but if sex is natural, pregnancy and childbirth are equally natural. And for the child, it is certainly natural to be raised by a loving father and mother, and in fact to have the same father and mother throughout his life. Psychological studies confirm that a child needs to be cared for by both his father and his mother, and thus it is obviously natural for sex to be accompanied by a permanent marriage arrangement. Hypocritical people justify unrestricted sex by saying it is natural. But to avoid the natural consequence of sex, pregnancy, they use contraceptives, which certainly do not grow on trees. Indeed, contraceptives are not at all natural. Thus, hypocrisy and foolishness abound in the age of Kali. The verse concludes by saying that people will neglect to ornament their bodies properly in the present age. A human being should decorate his body with various religious ornaments. Vaisnavas mark their bodies with tilak, blessed with the holy name of God. But in the age of Kali, religious and even material formalities are thoughtlessly discarded. Text 6. Dure vari ayanam.
Hold there, Prabhu.
Yes.
8, 1. All right, so text 6. Uh, Dule vari ayanam tirtam lavanyam keshadharanam udaram bharata swartha satyatve darshitam evahi daksham kutumba bharanam yashorite dharma sevanam. A sacred place will be taken to consist of no more than a reservoir of water located at a distance, and beauty will be thought to depend on one's hairstyle. Filling the belly will become the goal of life, and one who is audacious will be accepted as truthful. He who can maintain a family will be regarded as an expert man, and the principles of religion will be observed only for the sake of reputation. Report. In India, there are many sacred places through which holy rivers flow. Foolish persons eagerly seek redemption from their sins by bathing in these rivers, but do not take the instruction from learned devotees of the Lord who reside in such places. One should go to a holy place seeking spiritual enlightenment and not just from ritualistic bathing. In this age, people tirelessly arrange their hair in different styles, trying to enhance their facial beauty and sexuality. They do not know that actual beauty comes from within the heart, from the soul, and that only a person who is pure is truly attractive. As the difficulties of this age increase, filling one's belly will be the mark of success, and one who can maintain his own family will be considered brilliant in economic affairs. Religion will be practiced, if at all, only for the sake of reputation and without any essential understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 7. Evam prajabhir dushtair akirne shiti mandale brahma vechatra sudranam yo bali bhavita nipa. As soon as the earth thus becomes crowded with a corrupt population, whoever among any of the social classes shows himself to be the strongest will gain political power. Prajahi lubdhai rajanyair nirganair dasudharmavi achinna dara dravina yasyanti giri kananam. Losing their wives and properties to such avaricious and merciless rulers, who will behave no better than ordinary thieves, the citizens will flee to the mountains and forests. Text 9. Saka mulam isa shaudra phala pushpasti bhojana anavristya vinakshanti durbiksha karapidita. Harassed by famine and excessive taxes, people will resort to eating leaves, roots, flesh, wild honey, fruits, flowers, and seeds. Struck by drought, they will become completely ruined. Report. Srimad Bhagavatam authoritatively describes the future of our planet. Just as a leaf disconnected from a plant or tree dries up, withers, and disintegrates, when human society is disconnected from the Supreme Lord, it withers up and disintegrates into violence and chaos. Despite our computers and rockets, if the Supreme Lord does not send rain, we shall all starve. Text 10. Sita Vata Vit subject. Sita Vata Tapa Puravrid Himair Anyoyata Praja Shutridhyam Vyadibis Chaiva Santapsyante Chachintaya The citizens will suffer greatly from cold, wind, heat, rain, and snow. They will be further tormented by quarrels, hunger, thirst, disease, and severe anxiety. Alright, so you can finish this up for tonight, Prabhu. That's Varun.
Text 11, right? Text 11. त्रिंशाद्विंशति वर्षाणि आरामायु kalau nirnam. Translation: the maximum duration of life for human beings in Kali will become text 12 to 16. Yamanishu deheshu dehinam kali doshata वर्णाश्रमावात्तं धर्मे नष्टे वेदा पथे निर्णाम पाषण्डा प्राचुरे धर्मे दस्यु प्रायेषु राजसु चौर्यन्त्रा चौर्यन्विता वृथा हिंसा नानावृत्तिषु वैनृषु शूद्रप्रायेषु वर्णेषु छगप्रायासु धेनुषु गृहप्रायेषु प्रायेष्व आश्रमेषु यौनप्रायेषु बन्धुषु अनुप्रायास्व आशाधीषु शामिप्रायेषु स्थास्नुषु विद्युत्प्रायेषु मेघेषु शून्यप्रायेषु सद्मसु इत्थं कलौ गतप्राये जनेषु खराधर्मिषु धर्मत्राणाय सत्त्वेन भगवान् अवतरिष्यति. Translation: by the time the age of Kali ends, the bodies of all creatures will be greatly reduced in size, and the religious principles of followers of Varnashram will be ruined. The path of the Vedas will be completely forgotten in human society, and so-called religion will be mostly atheistic. The kings will mostly be thieves, the occupations of men will be stealing, lying, and needless violence, and all the social classes will be reduced to the lowest level of Shudras. Cows will be like goats, spiritual hermitages will be no different from mundane houses, and family ties will extend no further than the immediate bonds of marriage. Most plants and herbs will be tiny, and all trees will appear like dwarf shami trees. Clouds will be full of lightning, homes will be devoid of piety, and all human beings will have become like asses. At that time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear on the earth. Acting with the power of pure spiritual goodness, he will rescue eternal religion. Purport. Significantly, these verses point out that most so-called religions in this age will be atheistic. Pashanda prachure dharme. In confirmation of the Bhagavatam's prediction, the United States Supreme Court has recently ruled that to be considered a religion, a system of belief need not recognize a supreme being. Also, many atheistic, voidistic belief systems, often imported from the Orient, have attracted the attention of modern atheistic scientists who expound on the similarities between Eastern and Western voidism in fashionable esoteric books. These verses vividly describe many unsavory symptoms of the age of Kali. Ultimately, at the end of this age, Lord Krishna will descend as Kalki and remove the thoroughly demoniac persons from the face of the earth. Text 17. Chara chara gurur vishnur ishvara.
Now, we can hold there for tonight, Prabhu.
Yes,
So we are stopping at 16, 12 to 16, and we'll start at 17 tomorrow. See here. 12, it's going to be 12 to 16. All right. So basically what's described here is the difficult situation in the age of Kali, and We are seeing it come to pass. We are seeing all the changes taking place. We're seeing that our leaders are a lot of cheating people also. So this is the age of Kali. People have forgotten that the purpose of life is to serve the Supreme Lord. So, what's going to happen is things are going to get worse. But because of the Krishna consciousness movement, it is predicted that there will be a golden age of 10,000 years. So hopefully that will take place, and devotees have no doubt that this is going to happen. But after that, Kali Yuga is going to progress rapidly until Kalki comes to rescue everyone, from the age of Kali. So, any questions, comments, or realizations on the subject matter?
Two things, Prabhuji. One, I'm actually shocked that I actually looked at the beginning of this canto to see when was this published. I mean, I think it's saying 1984. This canto is published.
Yeah.
So in 84, they actually were able to see all of these things. I mean, complete destruction of marriage, atheistic religion, universities becoming corrupt, and all of that has actually come to pass. It's all happening now at a very accelerated pace.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse, actually.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
going to become the norm, so
Yeah.
even now some people still think, that it's a discrepancy, it's not the way it should be, right? Because even maybe 75, 80 years ago, it was different. So that's not so far back. But still, it's based on sex life and the pursuit of economic development. So there's passion, and then there's mainly it's in the mode of passion and ignorance. So because of the modes of passion and ignorance, things are going to become more and more difficult. The age of goodness was for Satyu, and what will happen is Lord Kalki will begin Satyug again. But we're talking about 427,000 years. So that's a long time from now.
Right.
This is why, yeah, this is why Prabhupada recommends just try to get out of the material world, stick to Krishna consciousness, and go back to the spiritual world. Go back home, back to Godhead. Otherwise, you could be stuck here in a difficult situation for a long time. All right, so
one thing I was curious about was that when at the moment when we die, our soul transmigrates and takes another body, unless if we are fortunate enough that we can go back to Godhead. But I was curious that is it actually almost immediate? Because I mean, nothing is guaranteed at that point. Like, okay, let's say you die in the year, I'm just making up a year, 2050. The next birth will also be in the year 2050. That's not guaranteed. I mean, it could be in the year 4050 when the Kali Yuga is, at even much worse. Is that true? It's possible? Like,
what happens is when a person dies, right?
Yeah.
If he's not ready to go back home, back to Godhead,
Yeah.
he goes with the subtle body to the other birth. And that subtle body carries all the qualities and ideas and conceptions that he has cultured in this body. All right. But then what happens for the sinful people, they have to go to Yamaraj. So there's a period of time when they go to Yamaraj and suffer. It's actually short, it appears to be very long because of the difficulty of the situation. But what happens is that The time is not measured like in earthly years also, because what it says is that the living beings, they come back down in rain. They 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 grow into plants, and animals and people eat those plants. And this is how that living entity comes into the body of another person, right? So it takes a while. It's not immediate. It's not like person dies today and tomorrow he takes birth. It's and then sometimes what happens is people who have good fortune, who have been pious, they can go to the heavenly planets. And if they go to the heavenly planets, the time period, the duration of time for one lifetime is is more than what it is here. It is said that uh, 1 year, 1 month, I think 1 year is equal to 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't remember exactly what it is. But it's um it's a different duration of time that one spends there. So then if one eventually comes back to this planet, it'll be way down in Kali Yuga. Or from the heavenly planets, you can go upwards to the spiritual world. So it depends on the mood and the attitude of a person, and how much devotional service he has actually practiced, and how what's how the Supreme Lord looks at it. So it's, but the person who is practicing devotional service is protected from the difficulties of difficult birth, rebirth, and difficult situations. Because you see, some of these little boys, they're in the Gurukul in Vrindavan and in Mayapur, right?
Right.
I think they're gonna grow up. There's one devotee there. He was a Gurukula. He is now a sannyasi, right? And just all he knows is Krishna consciousness, nothing else. So uh, it could be that they're coming back to help the Krishna consciousness movement. So this is, I mean, we don't have exact information on what it is, but devotees have said it, and even Rameshwar Prabhu is saying that Prabhupada predicted it, so it's going to happen. So it's just that we have to stay fixed in devotional service and try to go ahead. Basically what it is. Alright, so we can stop here tonight, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.